On Thursday, voters in Caerphilly, Wales, went to the polls to elect their new MS, Member of the Senedd, or Welsh Parliament. This was seen as a particularly significant election for Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who leads a party which has been dominant in Wales for more than a century. Welsh polling suggests that, were a Senedd election held tomorrow, Labour would come third, behind both Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales, and Nigel Farage's Reform UK. The by-election was seen as a test of this polling. Given the fact that Plaid Cymru won an impressive victory, beating Reform in second, while Labour came in a very distant third, it seems that Labour really are doing that badly, and Reform and Plaid really are on the ascendancy. So in this video, we're going to briefly have a look at the background of the by-election, the results, and what this means for Labour, Plaid and Reform. If you want more UK political drama from us, then check out our podcast Starmergeddon, where we track the successes and failures of this new Labour government. Find it over on the TLDR Podcast YouTube channel or in your favourite podcast app. The by-election in Caerphilly was triggered following the death on the 12th of August of Hefin David, a Labour MS. At the time, Labour were already struggling in the Senedd polls, languishing at around 18%, a decline of more than 10 points since the general election last year. Reform and Plaid, on the other hand, had both risen, from a baseline of around 14% and 22% respectively, to around 28%. It's hard to explain just how bad this has been for the Labour Party. Bad polling is one thing, but being 10 points behind two parties in a country they'd electorally dominated since 1922 demonstrates just how unpopular the party as a whole, and Keir Starmer personally, had become. The only saving grace for Labour was that this polling had not actually been tested in Wales. In other words, there was no electoral proof that Labour were on course to lose a national election for the first time since the early 20th century. This is why the Caerphilly by-election came at such a bad time. Caerphilly provided the perfect test of how the parties are actually doing in Wales. The town has sent a Labour representative to Westminster in every election since 1918, and has elected a Labour MS in every election since 1999. For Labour, it was an opportunity to show that the polls were underestimating them. For Reform, the by-election gave them the opportunity to prove that they'd replaced the Conservatives, and for Plaid, it gave them the opportunity to demonstrate that they're in a position to be the prime beneficiary of Labour's collapse. Campaigning for most parties began in early September, as it was decided that campaigning any earlier would be disrespectful to Hefin David. Immediately, Reform caused controversy by beginning campaigning in August and sent out leaflets on the day of the funeral. This controversy seemed to continue throughout the campaign. While Farage wanted to focus squarely on Labour's perceived failings in Wales, on immigration, the NHS, and even the unpopular decision to roll out 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in built-up areas, instead he was quickly forced to manage a scandal involving the former leader of Reform Wales, Nathan Gill. In early September, Gill pleaded guilty to 8 counts of bribery between the 6th of December 2018 and the 18th of July 2019, while he was a Brexit Party MEP. He was accused of accepting money in return for making statements that were supportive of a particular narrative that would benefit Russia regarding events in Ukraine. While Reform figures, including the Caerphilly candidate Llŷr Powell, distanced themselves from Gill, this accusation built into a pre-existing idea people had about Reform, that they're too closely aligned with Russia. Reform, though, weren't the only ones that had to deal with embarrassing moments on the campaign trail. In early September, the leader of Caerphilly County Borough Council resigned from the Labour Party and joined Plaid Cymru. This served to demonstrate, quite publicly, just how unpopular Labour had become, and how Plaid were, quite literally, replacing them as the party of the left. In the election itself, it seemed that this proved to be true, with Plaid Cymru's candidate, Lindsay Whittle, winning with more than 47% of the vote, Reform placing second with 36%, and Labour collapsing nearly 35 points to just 11%, and the Tories falling 15 points to just 2%. This is an astonishingly bad result for Labour, given its historic dominance in Wales and Caerphilly in particular. For Plaid, it's a huge victory, especially considering that Reform had largely been considered the slight favourites going into the by-election. As such, while jumping 34 points to second place is a strong result, it'll still come as a real disappointment for Nigel Farage and Reform, who put a lot of energy into this, and were hoping a Reform victory could foretell a win at next year's Senedd election. But the results show that other parties like Plaid are able to mobilise voters to vote tactically to keep them out. So why is it that Labour is losing ground in Wales? Obviously, Labour's polling collapse since last year's election is a nationwide phenomenon, not unique to Wales. But there are factors that make things particularly perilous for the party in Wales. For example, because of Wales's demographics, some of the Labour government's most contentious policy announcements, like means testing the winter fuel allowance, restricting personal independence payments, and changing agricultural inheritance tax, may have had particular salience in Wales. But the fault cannot be placed entirely on Starmer's Labour government. Welsh Labour has also had a pretty tumultuous time recently, especially after Mark Drakeford's resignation as First Minister in 2024. This sparked a divisive leadership election, whose winner, Vaughan Gething, was forced to resign after just 4 months amid intense party infighting and scandal, with Senedd Morgan elected unopposed as his successor. Morgan has since tried to put distance between Welsh Labour and UK Labour, saying she was losing patience with Starmer's policies and that she was tacking to the left instead, presumably with a view to countering Plaid. But broader than this, the fact is that Labour has been running Wales for 26 years, so a mix of public fatigue and dissatisfaction at the state of public services has sent voters looking for other, less establishment parties. Plaid has been the biggest beneficiary, with the Caerphilly results and Senedd polling suggesting that the Wales-focused party may be on course to usurp Labour as the main left-of-centre force in Wales, somewhat mirroring Labour's collapse in Scotland to the SNP in the 2010s. Recent YouGov polling suggests that more than 1 in 5 of 2024 Labour voters in Wales would now vote for Plaid Cymru, while just 27% say they would still vote Labour. Labour is also losing, albeit fewer, voters at the other end of the spectrum to Reform, which is hoovering up former Conservatives, per YouGov, with more 2024 Tory voters saying they'd vote Reform than Tory. Ultimately, if Caerphilly is anything to go by, next year's Senedd election has the potential to totally reshape the Welsh political landscape, as the dire state of the two traditionally main parties has created fertile ground for the rise of Plaid Cymru and Reform. Before you go, we've just announced our new coffee table book, Assembly Required, a 300-page book which highlights 27 of the world's most beautiful parliament buildings, from the classics like Westminster, the Capitol, or the Hungarian Parliament, to ones that you might not expect, like Georgia, Bhutan, or Bangladesh. For each, we don't only show you beautiful photos of these actually incredible buildings, we also tell you the stories of the buildings, both through passages written by our team, as well as through detailed custom-designed floor plans and diagrams. We really did spend a long time on this too. We spent ages digging into the stories of parliament buildings all around the world, before narrowing it down to the most interesting and beautiful buildings, writing tens of thousands of words to tell you their stories. We've also made both desk and wall calendars based on Assembly Required too, allowing you to experience these beautiful buildings year-round. Both are also double-sided, providing tons of bonus images for you to enjoy. If you're interested, click the link in the description to find out more. There's a whole load of bundles available if you want a good deal. Plus, if you do want a copy, you can get 10% off by using the code ASSEMBLY. That code only lasts for this week, so now's your chance. So if you are interested, then your support will help us to continue investing in our journalism and providing free content for years to come. So thank you, as always.